You're listening to Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars begins now.
All right, well, hello, everybody. I'm Eric Mansell.
I'm Daryl Sanders.
And we're your hosts for this show. Unfortunately, able to squeeze this one out. Unfortunately, the bad news is my mother's fighting for her life right now in the hospital after like a major stroke. So it was like, wasn't sure we were going to be able to do it, but I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to sit here and, an empty house and just think about that the whole time. I'm like, you know what? I'd rather get my mind off of it and talk Star Wars with you guys. And it's not like there isn't a lot to talk about right now. Because we are, 5 days away from the Mandalorian and Grogu. I mean, well, technically it comes out like
Friday.
Thursday. It comes out Friday, but like everybody, I don't know how they violate it. Like it used to be where you would do those like midnight shows or something, or they would do like 11:58 or something stupid. But now I mean, people are like, "Oh, I got tickets for the 6:00 Thursday show or something." Like, okay,
you're right. Like, what's that about?
Yeah. So, Grandmaster's on. He had kind of a bad feeling about this. Being our resident insider, I'm sure it's probably like, what expectation? What are you guys talking about, right? But basically, I clarified and just said, look, there are some people who have seen the early screenings right now. Like, half the people like it, half the people think it's like the weakest one. There's a lot of people who are in the camp that this is a movie that's going to save Star Wars theatrically, and then there's other ones that are like, yeah, this is terrible, and the typical thing that they say about pretty much every
Doms
Disney
of the world.
Yes, and I responded to Grandmaster in the chats because he was like, I have a bad feeling about this, and I'm like, well, that's only if Dom shows up. If he shows up, then I'm sure it's going to be, Star Wars sucks, it's horrible, the usual. But I basically pointed out, and we'll get your clarification. Like, I was kind of speaking for both of us, but I basically was like, I think, like, I have high hopes for it in the sense of I think it's going to be a fun movie. I think it's going to be a good adventure. I think it's going to be good. I don't know. I mean, it could be amazing. I don't know, but I don't really need it to be.
Yeah, that's kind of the sentiment I have. Sure, it'd be great to have like an amazing, like one of a kind type movie, like a Rogue One or something like that, right? However, I think we need to temper our expectations and just kind of like, look, it can't just, my thing is it just can't suck.
Right.
Like that's just my biggest thing.
Yeah.
Like,
no, you're right.
If it does well, it's like, like some of the kids, school's almost out, hey, as long as I passed, right? So my thing is, if you're passing, it means that like, okay, it's, it did enough to check boxes. Sure, there's room for improvement, but we had a good time at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's basically what it comes down to. And it's funny because in spite of a lot of the chats that have been going back and forth between us, chats, it's not necessarily worth putting on our stream here, but the one that is Ted, I think, puts it perfectly when he says, I'm expecting a fun adventure in the theater. Exactly what I expected going into Star Wars in 1977, Raiders of the Lost Ark in 1981. Nothing more, nothing less. And I think that's good. And basically, try to get this in real quick. Grandmaster basically says, Ted, hello, great attitude. Ted actually responded with, that's my actual movie time. Thursday, 6 p.m. IMAX. Like, okay, cool. And Grandmaster was saying kids will love it, and he was basically talking about that in the Discord. That's where Darth Maul in the Discord got a little bit of a disagreement that I happened catch was Grandmaster asserts that this movie is not made for adults, it's actually made for kids. And of course, I pointed out that, well, so was
Star
the
Wars in
original
general.
trilogy and the
Right.
prequels, really. I mean, they didn't really start trying to go beyond that audience until some of the Disney stuff. But it's always been predominantly for kids. That's one of the things that Lucas would always say that he didn't understand. He didn't understand why people were so critical of it when it's almost like their expectations. But the thing that I always point out to people is that you should make sure that in the marketing, um, you basically assert that. And the reason why I say that is because when Lucas was talking about that, there are only one or two generations of Star Wars fans. It wasn't like there was like it is now. And so now, the all of us who grew up in 1977, I mean, we're in our 50s. Some are older, some are a little younger. But I mean, the point is that there's different, there's people in their 60s and 70s, 50s, 40s, 30s, 20s. You have now a wide range of ages that are expecting something slightly different from Star Wars. That's one of the reasons why I think that it struggles somewhat, because it's not like the same audience moving laterally up the chain. It's now
Mm-hmm.
you have to appeal to kids because you want them to have that same experience we did when we were 6, 7, 10 years old or whatever in 1977 and seeing it for the first time. But then at the same time, those kids who did do that, like myself or whatever, who are now well into our 50s, it's like, well, yeah, now I kind of want something in this universe because this universe is so vast and it has a lot of depth to it. Well, now we want something that has a little bit more meat on the bone and is a little bit more adult. So I think that that's where they really have to balance. Now, I will say that just based on the trailers, I think it does strike a balance. It might be predominantly for kids, but I mean, you had um crap, what's the Hutt's name? Uh,
Zero.
no,
Dollar.
Zero was like the wasn't Zero
Yeah,
like
the
the
little
gay Hut?
flamboyant, the little flamboyant one.
Yeah, the pink
Uh,
one. Somebody will chat it in, I'm sure. But
yeah.
whoever it is, the idea is that you had him like ripping a bunch of people or something. I mean, like there are some adult themes, basic, but I could see where it is predominantly made for kids. Like I actually feel, I want to get your thoughts. I think it's going to actually be a lot in line with Solo as far as tonally.
Mm. Yeah, I could see that. I could see Solo. Um, maybe a bit of Rogue One.
Yeah, although Rogue One was kind of dark though, and that was intentionally dark. Because remember, they had pitched that movie as kind of like the Saving Private Ryan of Star Wars. That's what that movie was
Hmm.
supposed to be. And of course, had they not had the whole like Vader thing at the end, I think that that would have been. I mean, let's face it, that's only like the last, like it's just like one scene toward
Three.
the end of the movie. But I mean,
Yeah, 2.5 minutes or something like
yeah,
that.
right. So I mean, it basically does strike that balance, that chord. But still, I think that you're probably right in the sense of maybe the grounding of Rogue One could be there.
Yeah,
Is that what you're thinking?
the grounding of Rogue One. Like some of the things I've seen in the commercials lately or the trailers lately. Um, like the X wings, flying around, or um, just kind of like there seems some battle stuff, kind of is reminiscent of Rogue One a little bit.
Well, I'll tell you this. I went and saw. Ironically, this
Hmm.
is when I was finding out about my mom. Right, I went and saw Top Gun in the theaters because they released both the first and the second Top Gun movies back theatrically for a week.
Is it
And
are they like back to back or
no, it's like different show times. They were both
okay?
released, on the 13th. Was that Friday? No, it wouldn't have been Friday. Like Wednesday or something. So they were released then. So they'll probably be in the theaters through this Wednesday. Because it's like a 1 week thing. It's like celebrating the 40th anniversary of Top Gun. And I would
Mhm.
like to see the second one again in theaters, but I had to do the first one. 'Cause,
Yeah, that's just, yeah,
I mean, it's just the soundtrack alone. Just to
exactly.
hear like that whole like intro scene and that big hit,
Yeah,
that whole thing like back because I
yeah.
saw it in Dolby Digital. That was the thing. Purposely wanted the Dolby Digital aspect. But before that, this is why I'm bringing this up. Before that, they showed a little bit of an extensive. It was Favreau talking about Rogue One, Mandalorian and Grogu, and they showed like a bunch of scenes from it, and like these like AT-ATs and stuff. And I mean, it was
Hmm.
like the cinematography in this thing is just insane. It's like next level,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be interesting to see how that actually affects people's opinions because just from what I've seen in the trailers and then seeing some of this stuff, I'm like, okay, I mean, unless the story is like really generic or basic, I don't understand why people are reviewing it unless, reviewing it negatively, unless there's some sort of a Disney bias there.
Yeah. I mean, it could be, and it could be other issues like pacing, like we had with Rise of Skywalker. It could be, just not allowing enough character development. It could be a lot of different things as to why they're, um, some people may be panning it. And that's the thing. It's especially because we thought that this might have been like the end of it because it's like, okay, yeah, season 3 and this is supposed to be basically season 4 and then that's it. But no, it's not. There's going to be continuation in the actual season after this. So with that, I think that um one of the things I'm really looking for is the advancement of the characters. Like, I really want to see a deeper look into Mando and Grogu. I mean, we see Grogu, his little armor, you know. Um, so it's just like I want to see, like, okay, their relationship. How's Grogu taking on to the Mandalorian way? Um, how much of the Jedi stuff is he still trying to hold on to? It's just it's gonna be. It could be very compelling and very interesting if they do it the right way.
Well, and that's the key, right? If they do it the right way. I think that part of the problem is when we're saying, will it live up to expectations? I think really what we're saying is, was there good execution of a good idea? Did they in
Hmm.
fact do it the right way? Because I mean, if you look at the overall story and the plot, it's pretty sound. I mean, I don't really see any issues with that. I think it comes down to striking a balance, like you said, between character development, but then also, are you putting enough fun into it? Is it a balance? In other words, one of the mistakes that Disney, I think, has made since Lucasfilm was purchased by them is they were focusing on box office numbers, not so much the art of the thing itself, which of course is all that
Hmm.
concerned Lucas. He didn't really care about box office, but because he didn't, it basically appealed to everybody, and everybody just jumped on board with it. Ted says, you target the same demo age group years later, or the actual people who were in the original demo back then, like going with the demo age group, keep it 12, 13-year-old kids. And I mean, that's kind of the $1 million question, or in this case, $1 billion question is,
Yeah.
I think that here's what I think that you can do. And this is something that I think is very doable if they do this deliberately. You basically have that middle of the road that's kind of like the original trilogy, where it definitely, even though you can argue that maybe Empire wasn't so much. First of all, and you and I have talked about this, kids are more sophisticated than people think. I mean, even back then they were. So it's not like you can't deal with what some people might, think are more complex or adult themes, and that it would be over kids' heads. A lot of it isn't. Or even if some of it is, there's still enough there that the kid can derive enjoyment, and then it just enriches later on as they get older. But what they should probably do is have, especially now, have the flagship uh, movies or whatever kind of appeal to that age range, right? 9 to say 15-year-olds, like the original Star Wars demographic. Do that. And then if you want to do one-offs as far as movies go, or if you want to maybe stick the adult stuff in Disney Plus realm, where you can expand it a little bit, that would probably be the way to go, honestly, if you were going to do it that way. Again, I think that it's not a bad idea because, like I said, you have a very unique problem here. And I don't think a lot of people pay enough attention to it. Is that you have people who are just getting into Star Wars, say at like 7 years old, like I did, but now, all the way up to people who were 6 or 7 years old back then, and now they're in their 50s or 60s. And now you got to appeal to all of them. How are you going to do that? You can do that. The original trilogy did, even back when it was released. I mean, that's why there were lines around the block, because, yeah, I was 6 years old when the original Star Wars first came out, but my dad loved it, and he was like in his 30s. He was probably like 35. He's actually around Harrison Ford's age. And then, of course, my grandparents liked it in their 60s. So, I mean, it kind of appealed to a wide range group back then. So I just think that you have to do that. Ed's got a few more. He says, I agree about it being a lot like Solo. And of course, he liked Solo. So that's good. He says, it's hard to separate the legit critiques from the haters who are going to hate just to be haters. Yeah, I totally agree with that. David's back. He says, hello, gentlemen. It's Star Wars Day. I'm so happy to hear the good news about your mom. Not good at all. Like, actually, it's very bad. She has like a 97% chance that she's going to die. So it's not good news. However,
I told him that she was stable. That's what he was.
She is stable. And I mean, it could. Like, there could be something that happens. So yeah, hopefully it would be nice.
Yeah.
I mean, it would definitely be nice, but it's kind of like hope for the best, prepare for the worst kind of thing. That's about all you can do. So that's why I'm definitely glad to be doing this with you guys instead of sitting in my living room or something, contemplating the
right. What could possibly be
the suckitude of my current existence, but
right.
All good. Humor's still intact. What's that first emoji? Is that like a hand over the
praying hands?
Oh, it's praying hands. Okay. So I guess Grandmaster agreed. Oh, he did, because he gave me props. We always like that. Eric, exactly right and perfectly said. Go wrong there. It's gonna be like a pin that. He said that is the course direction now. MNG's Mandalorian and Grogu's result will predict. And that is something that I figured too, because you talked about Mandalorian season 4. Grandmaster, I'm sure will weigh in, but I don't think it's a done deal that we're gonna get a Mandalorian season 4. I know what you're talking about. You were talking about the fact that people thought that they turned the Mandalorian and Grogu, like it went from season 4 and they just said, screw it, we'll just make a movie version of it. And then you were clarifying, saying, no, that's not the case. The storyline for season 4 is in fact intact. The Mandalorian and Grogu is kind of like a 3.5. But I think it's also a good thing to say that I would imagine the success or failure of this movie is going to very deeply impact the possibility of us getting a season 4 of the Mandalorian. Because it's been a minute. Season 3. I don't even remember what year it was now.
Well, I mean, we knew Star Wars. I mean, we knew Mando, and we knew the next film would determine the trajectory of the movies, with Star Wars. So with Mando and Grogu being it, we knew that this has to at least be good. You know, it doesn't have to be awesome or amazing. It just has to be at least good. Um,
Yeah, I
and
would
I
actually
think,
say middle of the road, right? Like
yeah,
if it gets like 70, 80% Rotten Tomato score from both critics and the audience, I think yeah, you can, it doesn't have to knock it out of the park. I agree with that. But I'm thinking though that where you're coming from is something that yes, you and I mentioned on many, many shows in the past where it's like, okay, the next Star Wars movie is going to, in some ways, influence the trajectory of all future projects because it is. But
hmm
given that they chose this one, I think it has that added bonus, if you will, that it's actually going to deeply affect the trajectory of a season 4 of The Mandalorian as well. Because, like, if it's super successful, they're going to be like, all right, we got to kick season 4 out because, we brought the Mandalorian fans back. Because remember, season 3 was not well received for good reason. I mean, everybody pretty much agrees that season 3 just kind of jumped the shark, as it were. After a stellar one and especially two. But they could bring it back with season 4. And if this movie is successful, then I think they'd be more willing to put the money into that.
oh yeah, I mean, you're just trying to really recapture the fans, that you lost, and you really want to start, building upon that momentum and to the point where people can start to trust the brand again. And that's really what we're talking about when we're saying that you know this movie uh, depends on the trajectory of the franchise. I, I I've seen some cool things. Like I said, the cinema, it looks great. I mean, it's fantastic shots. Cool. It looks like some cool action in there. Um, I think overall the story just has to hit. It has to. I think you have to have good tension, good characters, good good pacing. They can come out with a win on this one.
Oh yeah, yeah, I think so. Um, and I honestly think that even the marketing has been fairly on point on this. I think that they did do enough advanced marketing, and they have slowly ramped it up, and people are aware of it. I mean, sure, I know much to Grandmaster's dismay, we bagged on the Super Bowl ad quite a bit,
Yeah.
but even so, I mean, even if you just take it for what it is, criticism aside, it did put that out there, and then of course they followed it up with a new trailer later, and then of course they've been doing a lot of some of the other trailer cuts that they've had, plus the TV spots and all that. So I mean, I think they've done a nice, appropriate ramp up. They have obviously, some fast food tie-ins. They're
hmm
doing like a broad range, very reminiscent of what Star Wars used to do back in the
Used to do.
day.
Yeah. Yep.
Where I think that's one of the other things, and you and I really haven't talked about that much in the past. And that is, well, I think we did actually do one show dedicated to the marketing, like early on. I think in one of
Yeah,
our
we did
earlier
touch on that.
video shows. I think yeah, I think it was dealing strictly with the marketing and the marketing over the years or whatever. But I think that this is something that's also strong too, because another way that I think that Lucasfilm dropped the ball for other films is that marketing just wasn't solid. I won't say it wasn't
Yeah.
there; it just wasn't solid.
Yeah, like one of the things I miss, even though it's not a trilogy film, I mean, just the posters.
Yeah, I
Star Wars
know.
has some iconic posters, and you don't see that as much anymore, especially with the standalone films.
Yeah, or a lot of times what ends up happening is they'll have posters, but they're kind of understated. Like that they're not really put out there. I guess
Mm-hmm.
I best way to put it. Like it's true. It was more iconic, but then again, print media was more iconic back then too, though. It's almost like suffering the same issue that album covers did. I mean, sure, you go on to streaming or whatever, you're still going to see the album cover thumbnails or whatever, but it's not the same as when you used to go to a record store and actually hold that big giant vinyl album in your hands with the big artwork and even the cassettes and CDs to a degree, where the artwork meant more. Like it was tied more to the project. And I think that
Right.
movies were the same way. The
Mm-hmm.
posters were tied. They're every bit. I mean, just look, like the one that comes to mind instantly is Jaws.
Mm.
That's like one of the most iconic posters and recognizable. You don't even have to have the title on there. You just show the shark coming up on the woman or whatever. It's like, you know exactly what that is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, it was kind of copying it's sort of like a redone version of the novel, but still, The Godfather, iconic. The original Star Wars, iconic.
Mm.
Like you have a lot of these posters that were just instantly recognizable to the point that they did launch into that legitimate iconic status. And you're right, you don't really see that much.
Now, what do you personally want to see out of this film? Like, as far as what we know now, we've had 3 seasons with these characters. What do you personally want to see as far as, Mandalorian and Grogu?
Well, I mean, for starters, I do want a little bit less of a surface thing between the Mandalorian and Grogu. I mean, about the only thing that sometimes I wouldn't call them warning signs, but maybe things that I'm like, I don't need the whole, it's like I don't really need the whole jokes about don't touch the controls and, some of these things that we've seen before. And I mean, granted, I'm not saying it's not unrealistic. I mean, anybody that has kids knows that, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's not like you have to only tell them once, right? But
Right.
at the same time, this isn't life, as I've often pointed out. It's a film. You're controlling what people are seeing. We don't need to see some of these reused jokes. Give me if you want to do some humor between these two characters to show their bond or their relationship, fine. Just give me something different though.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that would really count as more of a what don't I want to see. But
Okay. That's valid though. I mean, yeah.
well, and I think that we definitely have to go there in some degree as well because we point out in virtually every project, to be fair, there are some issues. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, we pointed that out even in the prequels, and I don't think we point anything. Did we point anything out in the original trilogy? I don't think so. People would be all over us probably if we did. But I do think that you do need to point out some things that maybe don't work, that have become a reliance. Like, I also hope that we don't see a whole lot of the volume on this film.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get that.
Probably not. And again, look, the volume has its place. I'm not against it by any stretch. What I'm against is the over reliance on it, which some projects have completely over relied on the volume. And I think that's part of the reason why Andor was so successful. Because it was one of the first ones to step away and say, no, we're going to do practical locations, things like that. And you can tell, and it feels bigger. Like the universe feels bigger because of that. I mean, even a city street feels bigger and more tangible than some of the things that we've seen on the volume. But again, the volume has its place. I mean, it's not always practical to shoot in certain locations, or not even just as a budgetary thing, but just as a matter of practicality from a technical standpoint. It just makes more sense. You can build out worlds and all that stuff a little bit easier than trying to modify or green screen or blue screen to death a location. So, not hating on the volume by any stretch, but I do sometimes see an over reliance. So that's another thing I wouldn't want to see. Um, Probably outside of Grogu, I don't know. I'm sure there's going to be probably some like Easter egg characters or something. But I also don't want any kind of an over reliance on the Jedi. I like the storyline the way it is, where, you know, they're basically going off. I got it that quick, actually. Like it just left my mind in the instant. But it's almost like a quest. It's like a quest based type of plot. And I think that that's something that is a very strong type of a thing in this particular project. And it works. And I don't think that, oh look, lightsabers and all that stuff. I mean, granted, sure, Grogu, he does have some Jedi stuff going, and absolutely. And I wouldn't mind seeing a few Force users in there. I just don't want it to turn into that. That's all.
Okay. Now, do you think that we will? Because we got some new characters here, right? We got Sigourney Weaver, right?
Yeah.
She's joining the cast. Um. Oh, by the way, that Hut Rhoda the Hut.
Roto, yes. Because I mean, I knew he was like a character that we've seen
Yeah,
before.
Rhoda the
You
Hut.
know, I mean, he's been there before. It's not like he's a brand new
Yeah.
character or something. It's just I just couldn't think of his name.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a gang of them too. I mean, literally, they
That's
are a
true.
gang. I mean, that's the whole thing about them. But um, I don't think this story has anything to do with what we've seen before. Like, I don't think it's a continuation from any of the. I don't know if it's a continuation or an extension of some of the things that we've seen in season two, season three. Because notably missing Giancarlo Esposito, Moff Gideon is in the cast. So that sucks for me because I love that character. Man,
Well, they
love him.
did. Granted, there's room where they can use him, but I mean, they more or less tied his story up, kind of, season 3. Again, they could use him, but yes, I. You're right, and the whole thing with the Mandalorians too. I think that maybe that's going to be underplayed a little bit. Like it's not going to be the whole where he's because if you remember, that was a big part of it too, right? Where he was struggling between like that old way of doing things, some of the new ways like
Hmm.
Bo-Katan and those guys came out with, and more like rededicating himself to that, and then Grogu, of course, choosing to be a Mandalorian over a Jedi, and I mean there were a lot of these little plots that were, um, wrapped up. I'll tell you what I would love to see is Bill Burr's Miggs Mayfield character in this thing,
Yeah,
because
exactly. Or
that's a character that I really thought was good. And by the way, when I first saw that, I had heard Bill's name, but I didn't really know. Like, I hadn't watched any of his comedy or any of that yet. Because I remember when
Mhm.
everybody was making a big deal about it. And of course, I see why, because in a lot of his comedy, he always makes fun of Star Wars. So, I mean, it's kind of like, all right, dude, you're making fun of Star Wars and the people who watch it, and now you're in it. So, I mean,
now you're in it, so shut up.
that
Right.
that was kind of funny. But I mean, just because I didn't have that, okay, I can't unsee Bill Burr the comedian thing going, I really enjoyed his character. I thought his character had a really
Hmm.
good story arc. I thought it was a great character. And I also think it's a character that you can bring back.
Yeah, he acted his butt off too. I mean, he
Oh, yeah,
really, like you forget that he's a comedian.
you
That was
do.
the thing because he had a lot of dark or grim kind of moments, and so um yeah, kudos to him. But also like the armorer, like like are we going to see her in this? Are we going? That's what I mean. Like, are there going to be things that we can um connect to the actual series, or is it just going to be kind of like its own thing?
Well, I think it's going to partially be its own thing. I think the other thing they're trying to do within the Mandoverse, anyway, is expand it. So rather
Hmm.
than keep it contained with a lot of these characters and storylines that we've already seen, I think they're taking a few of the characters, well, namely the Mandalorian and Grogu, but I mean a few others, and now branching out beyond what we've seen. Because if you remember, they did set it up in season 3 where he's now basically taking jobs directly from the New Republic. It's like, okay, I'll work for you
Yeah,
guys. And that's
I was about to
pretty
bring that
much,
up.
yeah, that's the springboard, I think, for the plots of this movie. Is like, okay, here's
Right.
the mission. Very much the same way that Grief Karga's character drove a lot of the quest-based things that we saw Din and Grogu do in the series. I think now with Sigourney Weaver's character and a few of the other ones that we've seen, of course we have Zeb. Zeb's going to be featured in.
Yeah, but I was about to bring that up too. Like, the fact that I think we're going to deal with a whole lot more of the structure and the growth of the New Republic in this.
Yes, I think we are going to see, and that's something, by the way, you had asked earlier, what do I want to see from this? I would
Hmm.
like to see where the New Republic is at a little bit more properly. I mean, we got to
Hmm.
ironically see a lot of the New Republic in the Ahsoka season 1 series, because that was when, of course, there were issues with it, but I mean, that's where you really got, like, in Ahsoka season 1, you got to see a lot of the inner workings of the New Republic. But
Yeah.
yes, I agree. Now that you're going on a more theatrical scale and you're dealing with a lot of these, again, it's a quest based thing, but now based on the New Republic, I think it makes sense to have the New Republic be a prominent thing, very much like how the rebellion was the background for our heroes.
Yeah.
Everything was framed within the rebellion versus the empire. So now I think you have to have the New Republic versus whoever the villain is. Um, and I mean, it's just going to be really interesting to see where they go with that and how they actually handle some of the stuff. 'Cause again, you can have the best ideas in the world, but if you don't execute it
Poor
properly,
execution. Yeah.
then yeah, then it becomes a lost opportunity. And that's the only thing that I would fear from this movie. And I really haven't done this yet, but I think one of the things I'd like to do before I actually go see it, I was going back and forth. Part of me just wants the purity of just going to see it.
Hmm.
But the other part of me is I would like to see what it is. The ones that say that it was the weakest Star Wars and people are the negative reviews. I would like to see why they felt that way. Not to a spoiler thing necessarily, although I don't really care about spoilers, but I just want to see, like, overall, from a tonal perspective or whatever. Like, what is it about this movie that didn't land with
Yeah, I would too. Um, I want to see an advancement of technology. I know you mentioned the volume earlier, but even with the CG of Grogu, I would love to see how they have perfected that even better. Um, some of the other creatures and things that we've seen, in the trailer, um, the music, I'm curious about.
who's even doing the music, you know?
I
Not
don't
John
know. That's a
Williams,
good
I don't
question.
think. I mean, that's the thing. That's
No.
another thing I keep losing track of now, man. It's like I don't even know who's doing the music half the time. And honestly, that's somewhat of a compliment, by the way, because I will say that for a lot of these projects, I have not had a problem with the music. Like, it sounds Star Warsy enough for me. I mean, except for, what was it? Where they were almost pulling the Star Trek BC Boys thing in Ahsoka,
Oh, that was.
where I
Oh
think
my God. When
Sabine was like,
Sabine,
yeah.
yeah, riding the man.
I'm like, okay, dude, that's just not cool. Like,
Yeah,
that's
they
just,
could have
I
kept
mean,
that.
that was just horrible. That was horrible. But I mean, other than that, I have to say that most Star Wars projects, both live action and animated, I've been pretty happy. Like when we review them, I usually talk about how good the music is. So I think they have like a stable of 3 or 4 guys that basically do the music for these projects. I don't know what it is. I know Grandmaster put
Oh,
that
the same
this.
person who did the who does the show, Ludwig uh Göransson.
Oh,
I know
interesting.
it's German, so
Well, and I know that I think the soundtrack Grandmaster, he posts a lot in our Discord. But I think one of the things I briefly saw was something about the soundtrack release, which it's always
they said
interesting to me.
they're praising him for his work of the high energy 80s synth driven action motifs that breathe new life into the franchise. It pretty much sticks to the show's actual themes.
Well, I would say they have to do that, right? Like they do need another thing that I would like to see since we're talking about that is having them bridge the show to the film. Like it doesn't need to feel like a linear continuation,
Right.
but I don't want to feel like I'm seeing a completely different project either.
What would make it feel that way?
If they decided to abandon the entire tonal elements of the show, or if they went like so vast where, you know, some things they'll end up doing. You don't really see this in Star Wars. A lot of times you'll see this in other franchises where it's almost like this doesn't even seem to, like, it doesn't feel like it has anything to do with the
Mm.
franchise that it's in. It's almost like a knockoff way.
Or like that one Halloween movie. What was it Halloween? Was it
Oh,
three?
3, yeah. Well, yeah, you could say that. But the thing about Halloween 3 is it still kind of felt like it and again, I mean, I hate to overuse the word tonally, but tonally it did have the same kind of a vibe. It just didn't have Michael Myers in it, which they could have announced that to people. And I remember in 1983, man, that's what killed that
Yeah.
movie. I mean, now everybody
Yep.
loves it. Like, and a lot of people, it's like their favorite movie. But, I mean, at the time, that was a bad marketing decision. But I'm talking about more to where they change the feel of it, because they're trying to, and the trap would be because you're taking this to a theatrical release instead of television, that you change
Mm.
it too much. You kind of look at the Star Trek The Next Generation movies. They basically felt like bigger versions of the TV show. Like they
Mm.
continued a lot of that. In fact, the interesting thing was Star Trek Insurrection actually felt like a TV episode. That was a criticism. It was almost like it was too
Yeah.
much like the show. I don't even
Mm.
feel like I'm watching a movie. I feel like I'm watching an episode of the show on a big screen. And that's something that you have to be careful of. Now, I don't think in any way, shape, and form from what we've seen that that's going to be an issue here.
No.
But they could, and it doesn't sound like they're doing this either, but what I'm saying is they could actually start to go, hey, new day, let's let's update this, let's make it theatrical, let's give them a different experience. I wish I could figure out a good example of what I'm talking about, because they're out there. I just can't offhand really think of it. I mean, the only thing that does pop into mind if you're talking about Star Trek is the original Star Trek the motion picture was like 2001 A Space Odyssey or something. It was like ultra clean. It didn't resemble the show at all. And
Mm.
that's because they were trying to make it like a movie, instead of making it like using that medium to expand the show that you created. Ted says Star Trek Sector 31 was a totally different project from the rest of Trek. Completely felt like a cheap knockoff. Yeah, I'd heard about that. I hadn't seen it, but I heard that actually. It says Insurrection was like a really good TV episode and not a theatrical release. Yeah, see, I mean, it's like
Mm.
anybody that you talk to will pretty much say that. By the way, I think we really hammered home our Star Trek connection on this one.
Yeah.
Usually we do like one or two of them. It's like, man, it's almost like a chapter.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think I really want to see the New Republic and what they're doing. I think we're going to get that. I think we're going to hopefully. I want to see some depth into Mando and Grogu. Um, Real stakes. Really want them to feel like some real tension.
No, that's a good
Yeah.
point too. That's a really good point because that was the problem with the Rise of Skywalker.
Mm-hmm.
Was I mean everything was so easy. It was like there wasn't even any real tension. You didn't even I mean you were just basically watching the characters. You didn't really feel any hey, this could go wrong or something. I mean even that fake out with Chewbacca's death, it didn't even last that long. I mean
Mm-hmm.
it was like everything was just neatly tied up. Ted says, "I love Star Trek the motion picture, but you're not wrong." And yeah, I mean, it's if you watch it for what it is, it's a good movie. But given what I just said, yeah, I mean, it's basically the problem that it has. But yes, definitely, you got to make sure that there's some tension, that there's danger. It would be nice not to feel like main characters are going to get out of every jam. But and maybe we won't. I mean, again, it's really difficult to judge some of this stuff just by watching a ton of trailers. First of all, if they do the typical Star Wars thing, half the footage we've seen won't even be in the movie. It's like, okay,
Right.
whatever. I mean, that's a joke, though, in case Grandmaster gets mad. All right, Grandmaster says, The Wrath of Khan did it perfectly with the Khan character from an episode and making a movie about it, which is must-see and iconic. Exactly. And that was a good point. I should have brought that up, actually, is that when you go to the second Star Trek movie, now you have the perfect way to take a TV series and do a theatrical presentation because it's like a master class in that act. Because another Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan is another one that people throw up all the time as like one of the best sequels of all time. I mean,
Yeah.
The Empire Strikes Back is considered the best sequel of all time of any genre. It's not just like a sci-fi fantasy, any genre. But I would definitely throw Wrath of Khan pretty high as well, even
Absolutely.
outside of the sci-fi realm.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Temple of Doom was a good one too.
Temple of Doom was a good one. I understand well, actually, the funny thing about Temple of Doom, and everybody forgets it, is it was actually a prequel. But
Really?
nobody. Oh yeah, because if you look at like the timestamp in the beginning, it's like 1935. Raiders takes place in 36. So it's basically it's actually a prequel. The true
Wow.
sequel was
Lost Crusade.
yes. I was like, it's the last something. They kept wanting to say Jedi. I'm like, no,
Like
that's not
Jedi,
it.
right?
I mean, yes. It's like, nope, that's not the one. But yeah, The Last Crusade. That took place in like 38, I think, 37, 38, something like that. So, but yes, it was the second. Talking about Temple of Doom, it was the second film in the series. So I mean,
Yeah.
chronologically speaking, and I enjoyed that one too because that was a pretty
Yeah.
dark, crazy movie. And I know there was a lot of people. I mean, yes, Raiders of the Lost Ark obviously is the greatest, and I think that The Last Crusade was a better movie.
Temple of Doom gave
Ultimately,
me nightmares.
Temple
As a
of Doom,
kid.
yeah, Temple of Doom was actually. See, this is why we got to do our whole entertainment exchange
Yeah.
show because it would be fun to
Right.
talk about some of these things other than just asides. But no, I definitely agree that it was the Temple of Doom. It's got a special place in my heart too. I mean, I thought it was cool, and
Well,
the whole dinner
as long as your
scene.
heart is not in his hand, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And he made like a really good villain too. I mean, he was a memorable
Yeah.
villain.
Absolutely.
So I mean, and he was a scary villain. So yeah, I thought that was a that was good. But I guess we're just we're like 4 days away, pretty much.
Yeah.
I got to figure out when I'm going to go see this thing. I mean, the funny thing about it was because of what happened, to my mom, I'm basically off all the projects that I was on this week. So technically, I could probably sneak out and see it Thursday. Whatever. I don't know. What I do know, though, is I will, no matter what's going on. I mean, I should say that.
Yeah, I think that it does matter what's going on.
Yeah, I guess.
I know what you mean.
I guess currently, but well, let's put it like this: the next show we do will be reviewing the film. I'll put it like that. I don't know if it'll end up being next Sunday. Again, I got to play a lot of this stuff by ear with what's going on with my mom. But I mean, depending on what happens, I mean, we'll shoot for Sunday at 8. If it doesn't work, then whenever we can get it in. But I'm hoping that we can get it in then, because I love the fact that when we did the Rise of Skywalker, and that was back when we were doing our shows on Fridays, I remember we went and saw it and then immediately went on live and reviewed it.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least we might not have been live streaming. We might have still been pre-recording, but we came back directly and recorded the episode and then kicked it out like the next day or something. So I would like to do the live stream as close as possible to when we see it. So I mean, we'll figure it all out. The best advice while you're subscribing to the channel and liking the video is hit that notification bell so you know definitively when we're going up, when we're live, because it'll tell you. And you can also do the whole like personalized recommendation thing, so you can even choose the type of show that you're actually notified on. Like you could just say, hey, I just want to know when the live streams are or whatever. So take care of that. But yeah, I would say probably that we're feeling pretty good about this one. But there is a little bit of concern on why there is some blowback. That's probably what I would say. I really want to know before going into this, what are people's problems?
Right.
All right. You got anything to add?
No, man, that wraps it up for me.
All right. Well, I guess the next time that we meet, guys, we're going to be reviewing, finally, the first Star Wars movie in 7 years or something. So it should be interesting. It should be a lot of fun, and I'm hoping that we have a really crowded chat at that time too. I hope a lot of people have seen. I think it will be. Because this is the first time, like I said, in 7 years. Grandmaster says, enjoy the movie. Like, here's the bottom line: we're gonna enjoy it anyway.
Yeah, just because it's Star Wars.
I mean, it's Star Wars. It's Star Wars. It's a chance to play in that sandbox again. So we're going to enjoy the movie. The question becomes, because even though we ripped The Rise of Skywalker to absolute shreds, we both said we had a great time watching it. It's just, how many times are you taken out of the movie because of some, mistake or some crazy thing? But generally speaking, I think we're going to enjoy it. I think it's safe to say that we're probably going to like it. I think the only question that's up in the air is twofold. One, how much do we like it or love it? Second, how many problems do we see with it?
Mm-hmm.
Because even with something like Ahsoka, right, we enjoyed that season 1, but we saw a lot of problems with it. A lot of problems. Not enough to temper our enjoyment, but enough to say, hey, we can't really say this is a good, this is a really good, it was okay. There's just too many mistakes. But it adds potential. And that's why I am looking forward to season 2 of that show, because I do still feel in my heart of hearts that they can redeem Ahsoka and bring it in. So, yeah, guys, next time we see each other, we're going to be talking about the first Star Wars movie in 7 years, Mandalorian and Grogu. So until then, I'm Eric Mansell.
I'm Daryl Sanders.
May the Force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.